call Monday, February 4th board meeting to order, please. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Duffy?
Present.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Present.
Mr. Lesh?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Patel?
Here.
Mr. Popel?
Present.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Mrs. Dixon?
Present.
8 present.
Communications to the board.
Yes, executive sessions were held on Monday, January 28, 2019, and this evening to discuss personnel disciplines and hiring recommendations, real estate appraisals, assessments, and litigation.
Thank you. Solicitors report.
Yes, we're going to make an amendment to add 4 resolutions for tax litigation that need to be voted on by the board tonight. So I will make the resolution and amend it to put it in after the public comment section. And if you give me a couple minutes to come back to me, I will be able to get that resolution prepared.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Carrion.
Yes, I'd like to congratulate all of our winners for our Reflections competition and wish those going to the nationals, or I'm sorry, the states, much good luck.
Thank you. Now at this time, Mr. Audi, you can guide me through this process. I'm asking the board that we could move the presentation for the food services to after the 3 votes that we're going to do, and do we need to make a motion to waive the rules of the board?
It would not hurt to do so. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but why don't we
Can I have a
do
motion
that.
to waive the rules of the board out of order on the agenda? Do I have a second? Do I need an on the question on that, Mr. Audi?
No.
Okay. Roll call?
So let me clear this up here. So we're talking about moving the food services presentation up to right now.
No, we're going to move the food services after the 3rd vote that we're going to do.
So right now we're going to do the 3 votes.
3 votes.
Do we need public comment prior to the 3 votes?
No, that's what we were talking about. No.
No.
Roll call?
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh? Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative.
Okay, now we have a resolution here to accept the resignation of Director Casey. Am I reading these, Mr. Audi?
Yes, I think you should.
So all I have to do I have to read a resolution or anything?
No, we have a resolution that's that is looking to accept the resignation of former board director Robert Casey.
So we we need a motion to accept the
Yes, motion
resignation
to, that's correct.
for of Director Robert Casey.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of the
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative.
Now we need a motion to accept the declaration of recovery status. Do I have a motion? Second?
I'll second that.
Do we need an on the question on that? Should we,
We should have a question.
on the question?
Yes.
Roll call?
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative.
Mrs. Dixon, I would like to make a comment now that you've voted. When you received the declaration was sent by David Goldman, the Executive Deputy Secretary of Education. Today, I received communication from Pedro Rivera, the Secretary of Education, stating that he is aware of our financial condition of the Scranton School District and the administration and the administrative practices of the elected school board and other pertinent matters concerning the district. So you received the declaration from David Volkman, and today we received verification from Pedro Rivera.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Mr. Rowdy, do I have to have a motion to open the floor to nominate Vice President nomination?
No, you could just open the floor for.
I'm opening the floor.
I would like to nominate Katie Gilmartin.
Do we do all of them?
I'll second it.
So far, I heard a motion for Katie Gilmartin, and then did I hear a motion for Thomas Schuster? So we have 2 nominees so far, and we'll go through them one at a time, we'll vote them until there's a majority.
Okay. Are there any more nominees? So we're going to vote for direct. Who was first?
I heard, I don't know, actually. I really don't know who was first.
I'm sorry, I heard to nominate Mr. Schuster. I didn't hear to nominate. I'm sorry. That's who
I didn't hear Katie. It's hard to hear.
Okay, so we'll go with the secretary, and we heard Mr. Schuster first, and I guess Ms. Gilmartin second. Are there any other?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh is talking, I think.
Yes,
Now, did they open the nominations for vice president?
they did.
Okay. Now, who are we nominating?
There was a motion for Mr. Schuster. There was a motion for Ms. Gilmartin,
Okay.
and that's all that we have.
Is Mr. Legend going
Okay,
first?
I'd like to make a motion for Greg Bowl.
Okay? Do I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Are there any others?
Mr. Schuster, did you want to clarify that?
Yeah, is Mr. Lesh able to hear what we're saying?
I'm sorry.
Is Mr. Lesh able to hear what we're saying?
He can hear. Can you hear us okay, Director Lesh?
Now I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we're voting for Mr. Schuster first. So just roll call, right? Roll call?
Okay, who are we voting on now?
We're voting on Mr. Schuster.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
No.
Mr. Popel? No. Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
No.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
No.
Mr. Lesh?
No.
5 negative, 3 affirmative, motion fails.
Who's second?
Ms. Gilmartin will vote on.
Mr. Lesh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
We're voting on Miss Katie Gilmartin.
Okay.
Roll call?
Mr. Patel?
No.
Mr. Popel? Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
No.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
No.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
No.
5 negative, 3 affirmative, motion fails.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Lesh?
Yes, I can.
Now we're voting on Mr. Popel.
Okay.
Roll call?
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
No.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
No.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
5 affirmative, 3 negative, motion passes.
Okay, congratulations, Mr. Popel. We're going to now move that presentation for the food services. And as the President, you're going to be taking over the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Laffey?
Good evening. We're here this evening just to give a brief update of the food service operation in the district through December of 2018. This is a pretty short presentation, it's only 4 or 5 slides. You'll be receiving a more detailed version, about 15 slides in your board packet this weekend. So the first 2 pages are just an introduction and a short table of contents. As you move on to page 3, you'll see some business outcomes or some analysis based on the participation in meals served through the first 4 months of this school year. It's important to note that the board approved breakfast to be served on delay days. We're reinstating that back to this 18-19 school year. And that the Scranton School District is continuing to operate the National School Lunch Program and the Grab and Go Breakfast Program under the CEP or Community Eligibility Program designation, which allows all students the opportunity for free breakfast and lunch on a daily basis. You'll see that, for the months of September, October, November, and December, we're serving roughly about 12,000 meals a day, consisting of around 5,000 breakfast meals and close to 7,000 lunch meals daily. And our participation rate for breakfast is right around 50%, lunch being a little higher as it's over 60%. So we see the opportunity here to kind of grow our breakfast participation, and some of the things that we have planned hopefully will do that. Some of the things that we're talking about are adding breakfast cards at the high school level, second chance breakfast, things like that we hope to drive up participation, as well as offering, kind of new and exciting meal alternatives on a monthly basis. The next page gives a year-to-date compared to prior year analysis. In the 17-18 school year as of December, we operated on 71 days as opposed to 69 days for this current year. Our meals are down just slightly, as well as our sales and reimbursements. You'll notice from a revenue standpoint, we do still have cash sales, even though we are a CEP district, which offers free meals to all. That would consist of your a la carte options. And you'll notice your program costs. In total, this year, we have sales just over $2.4 million, with costs just shy of $2.1. And we're showing a program profit to date as of December 2018 of about $364,000. It's slightly behind prior year, which was just over $522,000. But reports that came in today show that through January, we're only trailing our prior year profitability by about $27,000. So we had a pretty good month in January, and we're catching right back up to where we hope to be. You'll note that the contract with Aramark provides us with a guaranteed return on our investment of $1 million. So we feel that we're well on our way to that. Just on the next page, we're talking about delivering some consistent service. The current contract with Aramark has been in effect since the 15-16 school year, and in that term, the 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18 school year, Aramark has met or exceeded their guaranteed return to the district, which again has not deviated from the $1 million guarantee. And again, we expect to meet that for the 18-19 year. Some of the things that return has been utilized for is to offer some general fund budget relief that are currently, should I stop? We currently utilize that to offset some salary and benefits of 4 district employees that perform food service dedicated work. We utilize it to look at some renovations or some current refreshers to our current cafeteria operations. Anytime new equipment or anything like that is necessary, the cafeteria fund has been utilized for that. We're also, as we mentioned in prior meetings, exploring other indirect costs that the general fund of the school district is absorbing, utilities, garbage, things of that nature that we could possibly utilize these funds for. Again, a good example, a most current example of something that we're in the process of doing this year is adding an auxiliary lunchroom, cafeteria room to the third floor northeast to alleviate some overcrowding that they're experiencing in their regular cafeteria operations. Again, all funded through this cafeteria fund. They have a good foothold here in the community, and they're always hosting community events. Some of the events that they've done this year, we're providing meals to the Boys and Girls Club during a time when their current food service management company had stepped away. Catering for a Wells Fargo event in Nichols Plaza, which many of you guys are aware of, was through an award of a new playground for that school. And hosting Thanksgiving dinners, one of them being at John Adams Elementary School. We're constantly pursuing grants or awards. As we noted, we see some opportunity there for breakfast growth. So we're pursuing a Fuel Up 60 grant award, which is a partnership with the NFL and the American Dairy Association. We have the potential for, I believe, a $4,000 award at all 5 secondary schools. So the potential is there for about $20,000 grant award, which can be used to put towards our breakfast program, hopefully drive up that participation. There's been a recent award that Scranton High had received through Amazon, $6,000 grant. Again, will be used to enhance the breakfast program. And I think an ongoing program that we continue to operate is the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, which provides fresh fruit and vegetables to our students at the elementary level, at all elementary schools, 3 days a week at no cost to the school district. Safety and training will be the next category. We have mandatory twice a year inspections by the Department of Agriculture. Any areas of deficiencies there are addressed immediately and taken care of. We have mandatory yearly yearly training for all staff, and we continue that as an ongoing basis, not just at the beginning of the school year, but throughout. It keeps us in compliance with state regulations, USDA guidelines, determining what's a reimbursable meal, professional standards that the staff must maintain, and safety standards that are required as well. One process that we were selected to undergo last school year was the administrative review, which would be the audit of the division, by the Division of Food and Nutrition of our food service program. We were excited that throughout that audit, they looked at many aspects of the district, from, again, training and certifications, the financial aspect of it, but also our daily service. They observed over 2,000 meals served at 3 schools, and we only have one finding in the entire administrative review where we had one meal that missed one component. So it was a great job. It was a great honor to pass that admin review basically almost flying colors. So that was good for the program. And constant communications. We have monthly newsletters to parents that are available on the SSD website. Monthly menu changes go home to the students as well. Offering food promotions, fresh and healthy handouts to the staff, and also implementing some student surveys to get a better feel for what the students like, what they don't like, what they like to see more of. So that's pretty much the operation now. Now the next question will be like, where are we going next? We just briefly mentioned that we're waiting on some survey results and from some youth advisory committee meetings to kind of get a feel for what the students are looking for. We're waiting some word on the Fuel Up 60 grant, so we're hopeful and optimistic that potentially we can receive $20,000 of additional grant money to utilize for our program. We're looking to plan a fresh fruit and vegetable event with our provider Smart Partners to offer more exposure to these students to the fresh fruit and vegetables that the program offers. I hope to be bringing to the board this year for some consideration, some cafeteria updates or remodels. Again, the cafeteria fund does have a healthy fund balance. It's something that we want to reinvest back into the program. So we're working with Aramark now to kind of come up with some schematics of schools that need a refresher. And we think we have the funds available to actually do that. So that is something that we hope to do very shortly. last piece of this, which is not on there, every time this year, the Division of Food and Nutrition contacts us. This is the time of year where we renew or we can rebid our contract. The contract we have with Aramark was bid for the 15-16 school year. It has 4 renewals. We're currently in 18-19, our 3rd renewal with the option to renew again for the 19-20 school year if the board is satisfied. It's our recommendation. I feel the program is operating very well. My recommendation would be to seek renewal to allow the business office to work with Aramark to develop a fair proposal for the district. At this time, we're open to any questions. If there's something I can't answer, representatives from Aramark are here as well.
So right now, we are on pace to hit our cap to get that reimbursement of $1 million this year.
Yeah, in this presentation through December, I was still confident that we were going to get there. We were a little bit behind. The chamber results just came out today, and we're above $500,000 of profit through half the year. So we're on track to hit it.
All right. I know this reimbursement we get has been great for several different cafeterias around the district. We've made a lot of improvements, and I know that you said that Northeast is on the list, and there's some other ones that we're looking for. Do any of those improvements overlap with the presentation we were just given at the work session to, some of the maintenance that needs to be done to the schools, or even falling into the realm of safety?
I don't believe that they overlap. The limitation that is with the cafeteria fund is that it has to be used in the cafeteria, and you're focusing mainly on equipment and things of that nature. Any building improvements?
Yeah, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking maybe safety in the cafeteria or anything.
Well,
maintenance in the cafeteria.
Northeast,
Oh,
the overcrowding in that cafeteria is being. We were there 2 weeks ago. Equipment's already on order. We're hoping that we're starting that up and running very shortly.
That's the Northeast Intermediate School
Yes.
Auxiliary.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
You're welcome.
Director Gilmore, do you have a PSBA report?
I do have a PSBA report. Governor Wolf will lay out his proposed spending plan for 2019-2020 on Tuesday, and PSBA will follow up with an annual budget briefing with Commonwealth Budget Secretary Jen Swales and PSBA Chief Advocacy Officer John Callahan, Thursday, February 7th from 4 to 5 p.m. And that is available on the PSBA website, and I believe we all have access to that at no charge. The Attorney General's Office and safety experts, which they did not meet, will present at sectional meetings in February and March. A quick look at the list didn't make it seem as though any of them were close to us, within reasonable driving distance, but I would imagine some of the information might be available on the website as a follow-up, and I will keep an eye out for that. The board president's panel has been rescheduled. It was canceled due to weather, and it will be held on February 12th at the CTC here in Scranton. And the spring legal roundup is March 21st from 1:30 to 5 o'clock. That's the closest date and location to us. It's at the West Side CTC in Kingston. And they bill it as a year's worth of school law updates in 3 hours, which sounds exciting, doesn't it?
I present that, and it is.
I'm sure it's perfect. And a nice segue to Mr. Laffey's comments. March 4th through 8th is National School Breakfast Week. And No Kid Hungry Pennsylvania wants to celebrate PA School Breakfast Heroes. And there is a form on the PSBA website that needs to be returned by February 8th, allowing districts to nominate teachers, principals, superintendents, custodians, cafeteria staff, advocates, or elected officials who have been a school breakfast hero. So perhaps we can look into if there are any appropriate candidates for that. That's all I have right now.
Okay. Okay. Now it's time for public comment. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to speak and will be timed by the board secretary. When your time is up, you will be allowed to finish your sentence answer questions, will not tolerate derogatory remarks or personal attacks. Union officials will be allowed 4 minutes.
Vice President Popo, if I may, prior to public comment, I would like to address the amendments that I would ask that we put on the agenda in the Budget and Finance Committee, so they have that information prior to comment. Sir. This could be under consent unless anybody wants it pulled out. We have 5 agreements or stipulations that would be a motion to approve, and they involve 5 different parcels of property: 210 to 218 Penn Ave, 201 to 213 Wyoming Ave, 529 to 531 Wyoming Avenue. These properties have been reassessed to a lower value, and we would recommend that all of the other taxing authorities have signed off on it, that we approve that as well. There will be benefits to the district for doing so. The fourth agreement is a Nineville business privilege matter, which would bring in $37,000 for a one-time out of state or out of jurisdiction tax that was overlooked. So we have a settlement agreement to recoup that money. And finally, the fifth one would be M&S Incorporated Proposed Stipulation. This is another fair market value, was assessed at, was originally at $1 million roughly, and was reduced to roughly $900,000. And we were recommending that you accept that as well. And so that's what they are. And we have the copies of the stipulations available if anybody wants to inspect them. But I wanted that to be put on the record prior to public comment.
These were reviewed prior to tonight
And they were
with you.
Yes.
So Virginia, would that be B11 under
B11.
consent?
Well, there's 5, so will they all be separate
Yeah,
or on
they'll
one,
all
Mr.
be on the same, correct?
They could all be on the same.
Okay.
They all are to benefit of the district.
Correct. I'm sorry,
To amend the agenda.
to amend the agenda.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to include B11 in consent agenda.
Roll call.
Roll call, Jay.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh? I think we lost Mr. Lesh.
He's walking the dog. He's walking the dog.
So Mr. Lesh does have to be in attendance for the whole meeting for his votes to count, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon's gone. So there's 6 affirmative.
Did you lose Mr.
I
Lesh?
lost Mr. Lesh, he's not here.
Okay, let me contact. Yes, we lost you. Do we need to redial?
No, let him walk the dog.
Okay? Yep. Okay, we will call you. Go ahead. All right, sure. Bye-bye. He said he tried to call back. He said, now working number. There you go.
Hello, Mr. Lesh, you're back. So we were taking a vote on amending the agenda to include a resolution that Mr. Audi read regarding tax assessments
To benefit the
to
district.
benefit the district.
Okay.
So are you in favor of amending the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, 7 affirmative. No public.
Now we're ready for public comment.
Yes, ma'am. Holly Mead?
Hi, Holly Mead, Northeast Intermediate teacher. Here are some ways the board may help themselves as well as helping to rebuild the trust and faith in the community. All 4 cost absolutely 0 to the district or taxpayers. Number 1, pass a resolution to have a board meeting in January and August. Currently, the school board takes 3 months off a year, July, August, and January. It would make sense to meet in August because that is the most important time for preparations during a school year. It would make sense to meet in January because many projects and votes get set aside before the holidays. If you want to become efficient, you need to meet more than 9 times a year. Please pass a resolution to meet in January and August. Cost of the district is $0. Pass a resolution to amend Board Policy 903, public participation in board meetings. I would suggest that each individual board member may answer any member of the public at any time. When a member of the public asks a question, they have not been answered by the board since this policy was enacted last year. Many people contact you through email, which I have, and every one of you responded except for 1. But writing an email is not open and not public, and it's not like answering a question. You wouldn't have to answer the question, but you would be allowed if you wanted to. Amending this policy would be a good start in becoming more transparent to the community, and again, costing 0. Number 3, pass a resolution that any work session or meeting must begin no more than 30 minutes after its scheduled time. Consistently, this board has started meetings late, 23 minutes today. As any good teacher, good business owner, or good employee knows, you must start on time every time. It's extremely unprofessional to be late, but month after month, meeting after meeting, the board is tardy. Punctuality would show the board that they are respectful of everyone's time, and it would show that you're prepared and that you have a plan. It would also put an end to many backdoor, last-minute resolutions that get added. So I propose you pass a resolution that every meeting starts no later than 30 minutes after its scheduled time, costing $0. Number 4, questions. The question as the board, please question the presenters, the solicitor, the superintendent, and administrators repeatedly. Do not take every report, every statement, every slideshow, or every presentation as the truth. On behalf of the children in this district, you owe it to them to get the truth. If you ask a question and it's not answered to your satisfaction, please ask it again. I've attended numerous work sessions and school board meetings where the board member has asked a question and has not received a satisfactory answer. Ask again. You are in charge. Only the 8 of you, no one else. If it sounds fishy and you get that gut reaction that something doesn't sound right, ask a question. You've been tasked with a huge responsibility and you can't do it effectively unless you get answers. So stop being told what to do and start thinking for yourselves. And on breakfast at Northeast, each floor, each cart gets 60 hot sandwiches. If you had 150 hot sandwich for every kid, they would eat a whole lot more breakfast. Thank you.
Christine Gupnik? I apologize if you'll correct your name. I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Christine Goodekens. I am a 3-year-old preschool teacher at John Whittier Elementary School. I began my career in the district 25 years ago and have been in 3-year-old preschool. Was appointed then. Some of you I know because I've taught your children and grandchildren. In the last board work session, PFM had made some recommendations for our preschool programs, and I would like to address those concerns. Number 1, PFM stated students should be admitted to the program based on academic and economic needs. This has never been the case for our district. Academic needs, yes, which is why we administer the Brigance test to incoming students, but economic reasons, never. We have had 4-year-old preschool in the district for 53 years and 3-year-old preschool for 24 years. I looked through the Title I Federal Guidelines Manual for 2018-19, and I did not find any information to support PFM's claim. Maybe you can provide a page number and a section so I can let my parents know who have asked me. You would deny an education to many students whose parents wouldn't qualify based on financial reasons, but they would for academic reasons, and that doesn't make sense. PFM stated a strict enrollment calendar needs to be followed. Again, I did not see that in the new Title I guidelines. Wouldn't that lead to exclusion of students? Students move in and out of the city. Some students are not ready in February to come to preschool, but they are in August. Students need to attend the program within their boundaries, another thing PFM stated. Again, I didn't see it. What about students attending Robert Morris or Charles Sumner? They can't attend 3-year-old preschool since they don't offer it at their schools. In case you don't remember, last year PFM also recommended eliminating preschool teachers and having the preschool paraprofessionals teach the students, which clearly would leave us non-compliant with Title I guidelines. In addition, PFM said at our PFM presentation on September 5th, 2018, it was their PowerPoint presentation. I have a copy right here. It says, number 1, selection for services is based entirely in low achieving, not low income. So this is PFM's PowerPoint presentation from September 5th, 2018. But I'm also here because I like to share the so many benefits of 3- and 4-year-old preschool. According to our kindergarten and Title I reading teachers, our students are the most prepared for the rigors of kindergarten academically, behaviorally, socially, and emotionally. Our scores prove it. Over 90% of our students who attend our preschools score core academic on the DIBELS, which is the highest they can score. Over 90% test out of ESL and Title I reading. So you can't argue the value of preschool. A child's vocabulary grows from 900 to 2,500 words in those between 3 and 5 years old. And since our district has a lot of non-English speaking students, they grow from non-speakers to speakers and show significant improvements in language acquisition. Preschool is good PR for the district. We have given all of our children of the city an opportunity to participate in a high-quality preschool education at no cost to the family. Why change such a positive, successful program? Even the Carnegie Foundation study and Pennsylvania partnerships also agree. Finally, we are a federally funded program. There are 28 preschool faculty members whose salaries and benefits are completely and totally paid for by the Title I grant. The district does not pay one dime for our salaries, our benefits, our supplies, nothing. I thank you so much for your time. And please, for those who are so passionate and absolutely love this program, please take into consideration all I've given you this evening.
Christine, I want to thank you for your comments and remind you that we are passionate about our preschool program also. And Ms. Wallach, who from PFM presented last week, explained to us that there have been many, many changes. I believe it would be beneficial to have her come back again and represent that. She is a state monitor for title programs and has looked into all of our practices and procedures. That's how she came up with the recommendations and has said that there have been many changes. So I think it would be beneficial to have her come back and speak again about where we are with the program and be available to answer questions such as you brought forward tonight.
Right. And I have to say also that these were the 2018-19 guidelines that I reviewed, and also that she presented to us again on September 5th, which says selection for services based entirely in low achieving, not low income. Well, and I know this is for the 2018-19 guidelines, right, and that's what she presented at that time. Right. So, and I did go through the guidelines. I sought help.
I'm not here to debate what your research or anything, but I am here to say that we're willing to bring Ms. Wallach back to hear again what her comments are and to be available to answer questions and why she's making the recommendations that she's making.
Okay, I just want you to be aware that sometimes PFM does not get it right, much like teachers, teachers being eliminated in the paraprofessionals. That would be non-compliance, and that would put our funding in jeopardy. So just take what I'm telling you, and from the woman that you said also, which she presented on PowerPoint to us. So just keep it in mind, and please, I thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Brennan, I would like to arrange for Ms. Wallach to come back at our next work session, represent and address some of the concerns that Christine brought forward tonight. Thank you.
Jim McGough. I'm sorry? Matthew Loftus.
Good evening. Matthew Loftus, River Street, Scranton. I currently have a daughter in the 4-year-old preschool, and I have a son who will be going into the 3-year-old preschool next year. And one of the reasons I chose to buy a home in Scranton was probably the most important reason was the school system in the city of Scranton. And in the last 2 years, I've seen a lot of what I valued eliminated. And the information about the preschool program that was presented last time is concerning. I can understand the desire to meet federal guidelines, but I'm sure federal guidelines could be met and programs could still be retained for all citizens of Scranton who want to participate. I don't think we have to choose one or the other. There are ways to do that. The other concern I have about preschool is the early intervention. We've now gone through 2 quarters, and I know I won't get an answer to this now, but I would like you all to look into whether or not our early intervention services have been delivered to the preschool students as they have been in the past this school year. The second item, another recommendation of PFM, was related to school closures, the potential for closing 3 schools. I'm a lifelong resident of Scranton, and I remember my parents going to school board meetings in the 80s and 90s to stop school closures in my neighborhood. I was supposed to go to Jefferson School and ended up getting bused to Armstrong. I was at North for 1 year before I was bused to South, and I was at Central for 1 year before I was sent to West. And now I'm hearing the same thing that my parents listened to 30 years ago for my children, that there's a potential for school closures. We didn't get into the situation we're in because of offering children preschool or early intervention services or offering solid neighborhood schools. We all know why we are where we are. And it's a shame that these things would be even suggested to the citizens of Scranton. The final thing I would like to say as a parent, I have no desire to see a 5th grade student, my child, in an intermediate school. Children grow up fast enough, and I don't think that's the proper environment for them. Thank you.
Matt, I'd like to respond to that. PFM gave us one suggestion and recommended that we look at another suggestion when we get everyone together. So when the recovery officer gets here, they will have a committee and we will be discussing school structure. So they just gave in their report an example of what can be done. Nothing is written in stone at this time. So there will be plenty of time for public comment and input on, number one, the need to restructure, and if we do restructure, what it might look like. So there will be opportunities for input on that.
Thank you.
Gerard Hetman.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Gerard Hetman, for the Lackawanna County Department of Community Relations. First, we'll talk about a great new program that we've just seen come out late last year. We call it the Healthy Moms Initiative. It's a collaborative effort between the Lackawanna Susquehanna Office of Drug and Alcohol Programs, Lackawanna County Office of Youth and Family Services, and multiple community partners. It provides a community-wide recovery effort for mothers-to-be struggling with opiate use disorder, providing support for mothers and their children before, during, and after the birth of their child. This is a developing and expanding program. Please learn more about it by visiting www.healthymoms.org. Second, it's the second community-based partnership that we've seen in as many months following the Grandparents for a Second Time, or excuse me, Parents for a Second Time program partnership with the county's Area Agency on Aging. And we also have our flyer that has several new locations through the Lackawanna Susquehanna Office of Drug and Alcohol Programs that are for prescription drug take-back. We've seen a number of those roll out in law enforcement facilities, police stations around the county. We see several more now in other law enforcement locations, but there are some new ones that are in retail pharmacies. So we'll leave you the full list. The law enforcement locations have worked well for us, but we see a lot of people like to use that retail option because they like to do a one-stop shop where they dispose of their old medication when they purchase or obtain their new ones. I'll leave a few other items here. I know we're short on time, but Penn State Extension has their Growing Stronger class coming up for, Strengthening Families is the one that we have here. That's for children in 5th or 6th grade who could use some additional assistance in avoiding troubling behavior, making good decisions, things of that nature. It's a program familiar to the district. This year it's being offered at Carbondale and Riverside High Schools. The Riverside program started last week, but sessions at Carbondale are still set to go coming up. There's still time to enroll, so we'll leave all that. And our Parks and Recreation, the first program this year is the Winter Golf Clinic. We've got all the information here to register. Starts in late February, runs through mid-March at the Goodwill Industries facility in South Scranton. And last but not least, we hope it's not going to get too much colder again this year, but if it does, we've got some really good cold weather safety information from the county's Emergency Management Agency. So we'll leave all those items. We'll have some new ones coming up throughout the year. There are a few other ones in here, just to save some time, that I'll provide to the board secretary that we'll talk about later as they get a little bit closer. We'll try to plan out, so she'll have that information also available. Thank you, and all the best. Thanks, Charlie.
Rosemary Boland.
Good evening, directors. My name is Rosemary Boland. Mr. Artie, just for you, I am a member of the public. I live in Scranton. I pay my property taxes here, and I am the president of the Scranton Federation of Teachers. And had I known beforehand that was going to happen last time at 10:30 at night, you bet this member of the public would have spoken up. So, let's get started. Last Monday night, I attended a work session of this board, and I heard a gentleman stand up and say that we had 9,200 students. Mr. Duffy, you questioned that number, and you were correct to question it because it was not a correct number. Somebody's going to stand up from PFM and make a data statement that she should make sure they have the right numbers. That was not the correct number.
Yeah, that is the number in the demographic
Shut the
study
clock off.
without counting our preschool, Ms. Boland.
It doesn't matter.
It matters.
No, it doesn't. So, based on the 9,200 figure, he says we're going to close 3 schools, including the Whittier Annex. Another gentleman got up and said we were going to save on busing. We were going to save 1 bus and 1 van. No, you're not. No, you're not. Not if you're going to bus 5th grade kids all over the city of Scranton. That is a preposterous statement to make. It didn't bear out in any kind of study that this board or anybody else could have possibly done. You're going to bus all 5th grade students to the intermediate schools. What we in the district want to know is where are we putting those 5th grade students and how did that number get determined? Who went into the schools, who went into the classrooms while students were populated and counted? And then, how did they figure out the square footage of each classroom and determine the square footage necessary for each special education child? And then, who went to the City of Scranton Fire Department and asked them for the fire department regs regarding square footage and use? Does anybody have a clue how that is computed? I don't think so. Every item in a classroom takes up space. That takes away square footage from kids. Somebody has to know what they're talking about before they get up here. And I agree with Christine Goodekunst. Some of this is sheer, unadulterated nonsense. Somebody just wants to get up and say what they're going to do to the Scranton City School District. Well, guess what? I remember a different solicitor who was around here, and he used to say, well, this is Scranton, Rosemary. Well, guess what? It sure is. And we're not falling for it. Specify whatever they wish. We don't buy it. And we can come up with our own figures also. This is just nonsensical. Nonsense. Mr. Pope, you have been stating here publicly that the district should take the elementary schedule and stagger it. Well, that won't work, Mr. Popo, and I'll tell you why. It was tried here. Armstrong School was the first example, and it failed. And so it had to be corrected. The elementary school consists of itinerant staff. You cannot schedule itinerant staff based on a staggered start schedule. You can't stagger a start schedule and an ending schedule because that brings up busing conflicts. When Mr. Marichak was our acting superintendent of schools, we changed the bus schedules here to save this district approximately $1 million, and it did. Now we want to look at something again and monkey with what is already right. You can't stagger that schedule, period. So I hope we don't have to keep listening to that. I also read a statement that the Auditor General, current Auditor General DePasquale, should be acting the way he's acting. Well, he let him speak for himself. But what I do know is that the former Auditor General, Jack Wagner, for whom you did work, Mr. Popel, looked at this district twice and found fault. And that fault is now trying to be corrected. So this isn't like some new thing that we're experiencing around here. This is something that's been around. And now, all I heard about last week was that the maintenance department is understaffed. And the maintenance folks can speak to that themselves. But nowhere, not any time in this room or at the administration building has anybody spoken about a classroom. Nobody. Nobody speaks to that. Are there enough teachers in those classrooms? We gave 99 pink slips out here, and then we just had to hire extra support staff, plus teaching staff, to support our special education children. Why? Because decisions have consequences. And now look at the mess we're in. So I would say this has to be looked at in a different way. And yes, I know there's a committee going to be formed, and that committee will be given absolute, positive, correct facts. Facts can't be disputed, period. They cannot be disputed. So this nonsense has to stop. Next, this morning at 8:31, an email went out to all staff. Apparently, grades are due by 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon of this week. Tomorrow, we're going to have a broadband problem with the internet service. Does this sort of thing happen? Of course it does. Can it be expected? Of course. However, if every 900 of us use that broadband service tomorrow with its limited capabilities, it's not going to last. What we're asking for is a delay of game. Push the date from Wednesday of this week at 4 o'clock until Friday. We had 2 days last week off because of weather. We had 2 delays last week because of the hard weather here. And today was our first full day of school. We're working with new copiers that are not all hooked up yet. And then this. We're asking the district to please give the teachers time to get the data input so that the kids could get their report cards on time. They're not going to get it done tomorrow.
I received your email today.
Thank you.
And I did consider it, and I have not answered yet. And I don't think this is a board decision, it's a management decision, and I'll be happy to answer your email in the morning.
Well, it doesn't matter. Because whether the email's answered or not, if broadband goes down tomorrow, None of us will have internet tomorrow, so it won't matter. Thank you for your kind attention.
Rohune.
Someone smile. He said, I haven't seen anyone smile since the start of the meeting. This is the first time as a member of the public, my name is Rohune, I'm a resident of the Hill section, that any of us have had a chance to address the election of the latest school board director at your last meeting. Please be aware, this is absolutely nothing personal, Mr. Patel. I've never met you, I don't know you, and I know that you have made many efforts to get on the board, and I applaud your dedication. This is totally about the process. Given the arrest last week of Mr. Sunday, the charges against Mr. Sansky, the appointment of a financial recovery office, and many other questions in the public's mind regarding the actions and transparency of the school board and the administration in the past, I believe, and I think there are many others who believe, that the current school board must act going forward with total transparency in order to start rebuilding trust with the community. I do not think that the surprise election of a replacement board director at 10:30 at night, in contradiction of the school board's own stated procedures and of the Sunshine Act, is legitimate. I know it's valid under legal challenge. I personally know of someone who was considering standing for that appointment who had not stood the previous time. So that chance was not possible. Now, Mr. Casey has left us. Possibly that will happen the next time, but procedures were not followed. The Sunshine Act was not followed. This is, again, nothing personal, Mr. Patel, totally. But will you abstain from taking part in any process for the replacement of Mr. Casey? Because if any illegal action is currently underway concerning the circumstances of this appointment and the apparent breaches of the Sunshine Act and the school board procedures, if you do take part in that procedure and your appointment is subsequently ruled to be invalid or questionable, that would very probably taint whatever happened in the appointment of the next director. And also, we should have had a chance to talk about this, to discuss it, as members of the public, as members of people who passionately care about our students. This was not on the agenda, and it was not brought up until, it wasn't even brought up at the beginning of the meeting, so that the magic of social media could have brought people in. It does not comport with the transparency which I truly believe the board needs to show going forward. If we're going to get out of what is not comfortable for you, sitting up there is not going to be comfortable. It's not comfortable for us. I was going to suggest, Mr. Pell, that you might consider, as a gesture of transparency and trust to the public, resigning from the board and seeking reappointment under the same procedures as will follow for the appointment of the new school director following Mr. Casey's direction. I am sure that you would be reappointed, but that would render moot any possible question over the legitimacy of the actions of the board at its last meeting. Thank you very much.
Mr. Koppel, if I may, I would like to address policy 903. I share the concerns about that, and I think one of the most important things would be if we were following it, even as it's written today. Certainly there is opportunity for continued discussion about policy, which you all know I am always open to have. But the current policy does state that the president of the board may direct questions to the appropriate board member or administrator, but also that anything can be reduced to writing and submitted to the board secretary. And I think that would be a very important step in making sure people's questions are answered, there is follow-up and follow-through, and ideally I would love to see all of us in the, when that does happen, see all of us copied on the correspondence that follows.
Well, we're going to proceed with the agenda as it is right now, and if anyone would like to jump in the committee, please feel free to interject anything you like. Right now we're going to B1, is the recommendation of the superintendent of
The consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of this date? Approve the minutes of October 9th, 2018, October 15th, 2018, November 5th, 2018, November 19th, 2018, December 3rd, 2018, December 10th, 11th, 12th of 2018. You have a second?
Second.
Mr. Duffy?
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
question. I do have a few
Okay.
minor corrections. On November 19th, on page 4, there are several references to PAC, Political Action Committee, and it's transcribed here in quotation marks as PAC, like PAC of hooligans.
Was that the meeting which the Labor Council was approved?
Yes. Well, I don't know if that, it was discussed there. Was it approved at that point? I think so. Yes.
If it's possible, can we pull that
Wasn't that
piece of
December
minutes off of
19th that Labor Council was approved?
I believe it was December 19th.
It was December 19th that Labor Council was approved. You're questioning November 19th?
December 19th isn't here yet.
Right. November 19th is what I'm questioning.
Okay.
Did you get that, Mr.
I think this is the one where
Mr.
it's
Schuster?
tabled. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So
Does
would
there
you
need to
still
be
like to
clarity?
pull this?
Do you feel there needs to be clarity on that?
I mean, I think if that is corrected, they're fine. It's just a misinterpretation of the...
Okay. Yeah, I'd still like to pull it if there's some questions.
And then for the reorganization meeting, if my memory is correct, which it certainly may not be, I believe Director Schuster made a motion for Director Cognetti to serve as temporary chair, and that I seconded it. I think our names are just switched there.
Oh, but it's there, right? Is it just?
It says Director Schuster made a motion for Director Gilmartin as temporary chair, seconded by Director Cognetti, and I believe it is the reverse.
Okay.
That Director Cognetti it was moved that she serve as temporary chair, and that I seconded.
Okay.
And I did try to confirm that with the video, but there's some issue with the sound.
Correct. So is it correct that we're going to pass these, but we're going to make those corrections?
But you would like to table November 19th.
Yeah, we might as well pull 19 to review.
Okay. So we'll review 19.
Okay.
But everything else is fine as long as December 3rd is amended.
Okay, so
As long as everyone agrees that my memory is accurate.
Okay. Just 1 minute while I get this. Okay. Yes. Okay. Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Pople?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
Okay. Finance?
Now we need a motion to accept the consent agenda. This is all going to be.
Okay. Can we put a motion on the floor for the consent agenda to be approved?
Okay. Prior to that, there were a couple of things that I'd like to have removed from the consent agenda. The first would be D2, about discontinuation of the Head Start program, as well as G6, the Board Book of Rules. I don't know, before we get started, if there's anything else anyone else would like to...
I'd like to see us pull D1, D3, D2.
D1, as in David 1?
Yes, yes. David 1, David 3, Elizabeth 2, Gary 1, and Gary 2.
And then I think a couple meetings ago I asked if we had a definition of what would be appropriate for consent and non-consent. If there's the Is there anything that the board could get information-wise for that, just to give us guidelines to know what's appropriate for consent?
We'll come up with some definitions that we can all agree upon.
Okay, all right.
I just want to go over this. We're going to pull D2.
D1, I will take.
Correct.
D1,
D1, D2, D3, E2, G1, G2, and G6.
Jenny, would you read that one more time?
Sure. D1, D2, D3, E2, G1, G2, and G6. So there should be a total of 7 that were pulled.
B, that's a B and
So did I have a motion for the consent?
I apologize. I think we missed E3.
E3
Yes, I'm sorry.
and E3. We are. No, we don't have to read that, because that was included in the consent. Nope, that's it. We're gonna start at D. D1.
I think we just first need a motion to approve the consent agenda, and then we can proceed with the regular meeting with those specific consent agenda items that are already
The consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
No question? Yep, we got it. Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Pople? Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
6 affirmative. 7, I'm sorry, 7. Yes.
The Superintendent of Schools and the Budget and Finance Committee present the following resolution for your consideration, whereas the Scranton School District December 19, 2018 meeting, the School Board of Directors approved the 2019 budget resolution, and whereas Budget Resolution Number 7, designation of depositories for tax collectors, named First National Bank, Clark Summit as the designated depository in which the funds and monies in the custody of William Fox Tax Collector may be deposited, and whereas local tax collector and in the custody of William Fox Tax Collector is currently deposited with the Fidelity Deposit Discount Bank, Dunmore, prior to disbursements to the Scranton School District. Therefore, be it resolved that the Scranton School Board of Directors amends Budget Resolution Number 7 to acknowledge monies in the custody of William Fox, tax collector, will be deposited in Fidelity Deposit and Discount Bank until the time of disbursement to the Scranton School District to be deposited with the First National Bank, Clark Summit, Pennsylvania. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
The question? Roll call?
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
The Superintendent of Schools and the Budget and Finance Committee present the following resolution for your consideration. Whereas Act 327-505B requires bodies of school districts, townships, boroughs, and cities to appoint voting delegates and one or more alternative delegates to serve as their tax collection committee, TCC representatives, and whereas the Scranton School Board hereby appoints Greg Popel as the primary delegate, and whereas the Scranton School Board hereby appoints Gobal Patel as the first alternate delegate, whereas the Scranton School Board hereby appoints Pat Laffey as the second alternative delegate, and therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby appoints Greg Popel as primary delegate, Gobal Patel as first alternate delegate, and Pat Laffey as second alternate delegate to the TCC. They are hereby authorized to vote on behalf of the Scranton School District. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, I'd just like to say that at this point in time, I am on the TCC committee. I understand maybe the reasoning why you would switch delegates to that committee, but I have been voted on to be part of the TCC Appeals Board up there. There's 3 to 5 delegates that have been voted on, and if I was to be removed from that committee, we wouldn't have direct, the Scranton School District wouldn't have direct say in the appeals that occur at that board.
Mr. Schuster, could you not still serve in that capacity? Even though the TCC representatives for the district would be the budget chair, the budget vice chair, and our business manager.
Yeah,
Why
I'm
could
actually not
that?
sure.
Why could you not still serve in that capacity? There wouldn't be any reason, I wouldn't think. Would you like us to check on that?
It's a possibility. I would imagine.
Absolutely. So
Could
tell
we
me.
make a motion to table this then?
Second.
Yes.
Mr. Schuster, what is that position once again? The appeals?
It's the appeals board.
Okay,
After the lawsuit that's pending with the city,
okay,
some of that, they're going to appeal some of those cases.
okay.
So we're going to table the B7?
There's a motion.
Okay. Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Why are we tabling?
There's a question on, Mr. Schuster is on the appeals board,
For the TCC, yes.
so they just want to discuss it a little bit more.
We just want to make sure that he can hold that position if he does not have a position named on the TCC board by this resolution.
All right, 7 affirmative, motion passed. B8.
The Superintendent of Schools and the Budget and Finance Committee present the following resolution for your consideration, whereas the Scranton School District has determined the need to appoint a financial advisor to assist the school district with various projects, and whereas the Scranton School District publicly sought proposals for the financial advisor services, and whereas Financial Solutions FS&L has submitted a proposal to act as financial advisor to the Scranton School District on a fixed fee to be agreed upon in advance of any project and on any as-need basis. Therefore, it be resolved that the Scranton School District Board of Directors approves Financial Solutions FS&L as financial advisor to the Scranton School District. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question, anything?
I came away from the work session under the impression that we weren't going to move forward with this until the recovery officer was appointed. I think Mr. Duffy and Mr. Schuster both raised that question.
We discussed this further after the meeting. Mr. Laffey, would you please comment to the board on the conclusion?
Yes. Part of the question that came up the other night was in light of recovery, and obviously the budget requires some additional funding. Is there any other options to us rather than pursuing some type of financing or bank loan? That's to be determined. There are other projects on the horizon, much like a remarketing that's scheduled for this year for 2016 A and B obligations, similar to the remarketing that we did in 2018 on our 2014 notes. There's other projects that related to PlanCon reimbursement that would, the assistance of a financial advisor would be necessary. This engagement letter that they provided does not lock us in as the resolution stated is on an as-needed basis. If the need for financial borrowing is not necessary, then there wouldn't be any commitment to that. I think it allows the business office, and I reviewed this with PFM as well, in the event of a project where it's necessary, that's the person that we'll reach out to receive some type of proposal or quote on it, which will be brought to the board for your consideration.
I have a quick question. So you're talking about in the event we need some financing. My understanding, I thought you said this to me, Mr. Grant, during the budget hearings, that if we enter recovery and then at the need to finance or borrow, it'll be done at either zero interest or low interest through the recovery officer, not maybe this planner or in conjunction with, I don't know.
That's correct, but what this action is, at the direction of the board, we went out to receive proposals from financial advisors who had that on your list to appoint such a person or a firm. And the idea being here is that they wouldn't get involved until we need them. If you're going into recovery, so the next step would be once the plan is formulated and approved, the state that makes funds available to the board without it for a period of time. So we would probably go through that process for that transaction. But as Mr. Laffey just indicated, you have a remarketing coming up in late spring, where we would advise you to have some financial advisor to look at the total picture to see if there are other options or what's a good option or what's a good rate to be paid.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lappy, did we get a lot of bids for this position?
No, we did not. This was the sole provider, this was the sole response.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
No.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
6 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
Okay, the Superintendent of Schools and the Budget and Finance Committee present the following resolution for your consideration, whereas at a meeting of the School Board of Directors on November 20th, 2017, the board approved the submission of PlanCon A documents to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And whereas the PlanCon K documents were submitted and approved letters for lease numbers 082275, 112275, 112375, 112475, and 142,475 were received on April 3rd, 2018. And whereas the Pennsylvania Department of Education requested that the approval letters and appended materials should be entered into the minutes of the school board, therefore be it resolved that the approved letters for the above-mentioned leases are accepted by the school board of directors and will be recorded to the school board minutes. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
Other questions?
On the question, this was all produced by our past financial advisor?
No.
Yes, well, at the time back when the rules to file a PlanCon case from November 2017 was passed by the board, our financial advisor at the time, KSCon Capital had worked on the PlanCon case documents which were submitted. We subsequently received the confirmation that they were submitted, received, and approved. This was an oversight that, the following paragraph that it should be appended and the material should be entered into the minutes was oversight. But yes, it was, the submission documents were prepared by our financial advisor at that time.
This is work that's already been done, it's work that's already been completed, it was nothing.
Yeah, in
the current time, it's our past documents that are being just put in the minutes.
They weren't brought to you when they should have been.
Now, have any payments gone out to our past advisor over this document, or this is just the record?
This is just the record of it, right?
Okay, thank you.
One other thing I'd like to bring forward, as far as the budget and finance is concerned, I'd like to add, first of all, commend Director Duffy for his efforts to secure state money as he did in the past. And I'd like to dovetail onto that effort that Director Duffy has. I'd like to ask the superintendent if she would construct a letter to the governor of Pennsylvania, a two-pronged, to look at our financial recovery and additional state monies in two areas. An immediate source of money, if the governor and the legislature could help the district out, and a long-term situation in which some of the reimbursements would be looked at and changed to accommodate urban school districts. I feel as though urban school districts get shortchanged on many of the reimbursements from the Commonwealth, and I would like to see that changed. And to add emphasis to it, I would like all of our board members, we all know various political people. I think the more sign-ons that we would have to something like this, the more effect it would have. I would like to see city council members, I would like to see the mayor, appropriate county officials sign on to this project, and it would be nice if we could get a group of people, governmental officials, go to Harrisburg, possibly meet with the governor, and submit our request to him, because this is an extremely serious matter, and if we don't get some adequate help from the Commonwealth, it's going to be a bad, bad situation for us for a long, long time. And if everyone here is in accordance with that, I'd like to see it go forward. Doctor, would you go along with that? Would you?
I will construct a letter, and I think Ms. Gilmartin will have some information for the board tonight that might support this effort also.
Okay.
But I will be happy to honor your request.
Thank you.
While we're on this subject, has there ever been any talk about getting these additional fundings to help with passing the yearly budget as opposed to the budget that we currently are on, or a budget cycle?
So, the
possibility of state funding to help with the switch over to the fiscal year budget.
Oh, yeah. We have not addressed that yet. Mr. Audi knows that that is the board's desire, and it would take some financial assistance to get us through that tax period.
I think that'd be a good juncture to maybe get some of that infusion, if they could help us out to get to where we need to be.
can express our interest in that letter and add that portion, work together on that.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel? 7 affirmative.
Members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Community Relations Committee that the following resolution is approved. Whereas Pennsylvania's more than 1.7 million public school students deserve the highest quality education, and the state's public schools work best when they have the resources to give all students the opportunities they need to succeed. And whereas Pennsylvania ranks 46th among 50 states in the amount of state subsidies allocated to support elementary and secondary education, amongst the lowest in the nation, where state's share of funding public education is at 38%, and Pennsylvania has the widest funding gap between wealthy and poor school districts of any state in the country. And whereas the state has failed to keep up with the pace of rising costs of mandated special education for students with disabilities, which has increased by $1.6 billion over the last decade, even as the state's share of the cost has fallen from 36 to 25%. And whereas the state has failed to keep pace with the cost of providing career and technical education, CTE, pathways to all students, allowing its share of CTE funding to fall to 8%, leaving school districts with a 90% share of the CTE budget. And whereas inadequate state funding places additional burden on local taxpayers to pick up a greater share of the public schools costs to ensure that the student's education is not jeopardized. And whereas the state must make greater sustainable investments in public schools to lift all students and prepare them for today's competitive workforce. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School District urges the General Assembly to take legislative action for public education by increasing basic education funding through the state's fair funding formula, ensuring sufficient resources for special education and career and technical education, and generating the necessary revenue through sustainable recurring fund sources. Amen. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be submitted to the elected senators and representatives from the Scranton School District in the General Assembly and the Governor of Pennsylvania. Respectfully submitted, Paul Duffy, Chairman, Community Relations Committee.
Second.
On the question. This is something that I've been talking about for 3 years, and anyone who's come to more than one meeting has heard me speak about it. This is by far our biggest problem. And as we enter into recovery, I worked for many years on the Scranton Police Department, and have heard the words recovery plan and recovery programs, and believe me, having gone through it, there's nothing fun about it. This year is going to be, I think, as difficult, if not worse, than last year. That being said, there's a lot of things that were brought up tonight by Ms. Bowen and many of the people in her union, and I completely agree with many of the questions that are going to be receiving my family, specifically my 3-year-old son, who's also going to be entering with Mr. Loftus' son in the 3-year-old preschool. I've argued many times on behalf of preschool that won't change. We also have a growing population in this school district, which all of these other districts did not have, almost all of them that are our size, that are continuing to deal with this. And as kids continue to come into our schools, we continue to fall behind. It's not by anybody's misstep or lack of guidance. That being said, there have been things in the past that definitely are in the process of being corrected, which I hope they continue to be. This is something that, as a school director, is most important to me over the past 4 years that I've served, and I hope that everybody is listening, because if we're going to be talking about recovery plans, well, then we better be talking about fair subsidy for all of our kids, fair subsidy for all of our teachers, and most importantly, fair subsidy for all of our taxpayers. Thank you.
There isn't a great deal to add to that, but as Mr. Duffy is aware, Dr. Kieran and I met so that she could get me up to speed on some of the PA schools work initiatives. Unfortunately, that meeting was canceled because of weather this week, and we're still waiting for a new date. But I think if that doesn't come quickly, we should extend an invitation to Ms. Spica, again, as we had discussed a few months ago, to see if she might come to a work session. And Dr. Kieran and I actually sat and set a calendar using some of the PA schools work information, and we are hoping that Mrs. Dixon might even allow us to host next month's work session in a larger venue. We brainstormed a list of people, a lot of the players that Mr. Popel just referenced, who might come forward and hear what has to be said, and what Mr. Duffy has been pounding into everybody over the last few years so well. And I think we need to continue to organize around this effort, and PA Schools Work is laying some great groundwork for us, and certainly Mr. Duffy's passion and enthusiasm is a tremendous asset. And I think if we're organized around a strong framework and really keep pushing this issue, we can make some headway. And certainly the timing with the governor's budget work this week and subsequent hearings and information will afford us an opportunity to have our voices heard.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
The Personnel Committee presents the following resolution for your consideration. Be it resolved that the Chief of Human Resources have previously met the conditions for retirement on December 31st, 2018, and whereas to continue the operation of the Human Resources Office and provide for a transition period for procedure and duties, now therefore be it resolved that the same terms and conditions that existed for the December 31st, 2018 retirement be extended until March 31st, 2019 for the Chief of Human Resource Officer, William Gaynor. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
Another question?
That was already done in consent.
This was
Under consent agenda.
I thought you asked me.
We're on F-4.
Yep.
No, F-4, Virginia.
Should we be moving back to D's?
We will, yeah. Yep.
So we do F
Let
first.
me do the F first, we'll get that out. It is the recommendation of the superintendent of the Personnel Committee that the following resolution be approved, whereas the ELECT program requires a data entry specialist position, and whereas Margaret Newcomb is employed as a case manager with a base salary and paid an additional hourly pay for additionally mandatory data entry duties, and whereas the 2018-19 ELECT grant combined both positions under one person and one salary, and therefore be it resolved for the employee funded through ELECT salary of $34,000 that includes the duties of both case manager and data entry specialist is approved effective February 1st, 2019, contingent upon the ELECT grant funding. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, do we know where we're at with the ELECT grant funding?
Say that again.
Do we know where we're at? What's an update on our ELECT grant funding? Did we get the grant?
Yes, we received, what, I believe, 192,000. 199,000, Mr. Schuster.
And this position is a current position in the district or case manager?
Yes, it is a current position. It will be subsidized by the grant. If for any reason the grant would go away, the additional funding would also go away. It's strictly dependent on the grant.
Roll call.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
7 affirmative. D1 is one that was pulled, correct?
Yes. So this one is approved Johnson College dual enrollment.
Member of the school board of the school director of the city of Scranton. It is a recommendation of the superintendent of education community that following regulations should approve. Where Scranton School District support the promoted and pursued procedure degree by student of Scranton School District at College of University site and trade school, and where Scranton School District wishes to grant student assessed course bring college credit while they are still completing their education with the Scranton School District, and where circular transfer support the partnership Johnson College, where Johnson College wishes to support the vision of Scranton School District to assist students and achieve post-secondary course and degree, and now therefore its resolution to that Scranton School District will enter into the agreement with the Johnson College whereby student enrolled in the Scranton School District will permit to receive a college credit from the selective approval course currently offered in the circular of Scranton School District, currently caused by approval of a member of the SEPT, respectfully submitted.
All right, so as you all know, we do have dual enrollment agreements with many colleges and universities around our area. We have been working for at least 2 years now to join with Johnson College to have a dual enrollment program there. If you have questions, Ms. McTiernan is prepared to answer any questions you may have.
I just think this is wonderful, and I didn't think it should get smushed in with the consent agenda, so.
Very nice.
This was very good work, and they do great work over at Johnson College, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity for our students, so thank you.
If there's anything you'd like to say, Jen, Bob.
Thank you.
Were you nervous? You seemed a little nervous.
Oh no, I'm just as excited. They just put out something, this is just a little aside, they put out something recently about the shortage of airline employees that Boeing has made quite a big splash about, and they are beginning to do programs now to introduce high school students to aviation careers. So we think that's a big plus for our students in Scranton.
I think Boeing likes it when you say they want to make a big splash.
Poor choice of words on my part.
Anyone else, or roll call?
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Pople? Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
7 affirmative. D2.
D2, approved to discontinue Head Start.
Member of the board of the school district of the city of Scranton, it's recommended of superintendent and education committee that the following resolutions should approve. Where Scranton School District recognize the importance of the early child education, and where district has long history and collaborating with the Head Start programming in the city of Scranton as partner, and where director unable to follow the requirement Head Start performance standard, and therefore be to resolve the Scranton School District is terminating the letter of the agreement between the district and Scranton Lackawanna Human Development Agency for the 2018 to 2019 school year effective January 28, 2019, but will continue collaborating as a student and transportation for the Head Start faculty into the Scranton School District. Respectfully submitted.
Other question?
I need a second.
Well, I think this is brought on the agenda for a better explanation to the public.
Surely.
Because of the criteria, we can't meet it.
We
Just
can,
explain it, please.
yes.
Do we have a second person?
On November 29th, the school district received a letter from the Lackawanna Human Development Agency explaining to us that they are being held to stricter standards and that we are not able to meet their standards. Ms. McTiernan put together a presentation to the board to explain what we would need to do to meet those standards, which really is not possible under our current situation. Ms. McTiernan?
That's correct. Anybody have specific questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I remember it explained fully to me at the work session, but, you know, why it was under consent, I thought maybe bring it out so we can explain it again. So tomorrow, you know, the public has a true understanding of why we're doing it.
And I do have a question, maybe if you could answer while you're responding. Does this hamper, disrupt, or change anything that we're doing with the 3- and 4-year-old preschool program whatsoever?
Does not. This does not change the program itself. It's just the Head Start funding that we would receive for those students, which was $14 per day per student. We will not receive that. So in the letter, we needed to address that each session. Right now we have AM and PM session. Head Start stated that we needed a 3.5-hour session. Our day at the elementary is 6.25 hours. 3.5 and 3.5 is 7, so that's a math problem that doesn't work. Also, at all times for Head Start, you need a paraprofessional that has the qualifications that meet Head Start, and I believe I told you that is either an associate's or a CDA, and also a qualified teacher, which we have all of that in our Head Start classrooms. The problem is that they need to remain in the room at all times. There needs to be 2 qualified, what I just explained to you, at all times. The problem is we have teachers obviously get a lunch and they get a prep. So who covers those kids during that time? That's another problem we have. The third thing was the curriculum issue, and that can easily be addressed. We just have to send our curriculum into Octile, and they either accept what we have or ask for revisions. So that's one of the things that at this point in time we can meet that mandate. We would just have to do that. And the last thing again is the classroom sizes of pre-K 3 is 15 is maxed out at, and pre-K 4 is maxed out at 17. And our current Head Start classrooms that we have are all to those numbers. So that's not a problem right now. So our problem is the classrooms that we don't have the certified paraprofessional, and really the biggest issue is the time issue. So given how our program is today, we can't meet the standards.
And did you not say we would need to run our elementary school till 4:30 in the
Well,
afternoon?
if we were to do the 3.5 hours, we'd bring them in at 8:10, we'd run 3.5 hours. I believe the teacher would then get a prep and a lunch, and then we'd start the second session at 1 o'clock, which would end at 4:30. And that's not going to work.
Do you have at least a brief list of like the con side of this, or any kind of repercussions that we have?
Repercussions?
Yeah.
There is no repercussions, we just don't get the $14 per day. We'll continue to work with Head Start because there's transitioning with students that come into our classrooms, into our kindergarten classrooms and so on and so forth, that we'll continue to work with them, but there will be no refund money.
And Mr. Laffey, can you address that? We looked at this very carefully from a financial standpoint, and we were not receiving the maximum amount of funding that we would like to have received from Head Start for many, many years now.
Yes, Dr. Karen asked me if this was a budgeted revenue source. It's not a directly budgeted revenue source that has its own line item on the budget that's presented to you guys. It would be included into like a miscellaneous federal reimbursement grant. The last couple of years, I think the reimbursements have declined, from what we probably saw maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago. Off the top of my head, I'd say we were probably receiving about $2,000, $3,000 a month of reimbursement, so that's what we're losing at this time.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. Lesh? Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
Member of the Board of the School Director of the City of Scranton, it's recommended of Superintendent of Education Committee that the following resolutions should be approved. Where the Scranton School District recognizes the importance of expanding the student access of a high-quality computer science STEM education, and where the district wishes to support a student graduate prepare for the success in the whole economy where the computer science skill are greater demand, and where the district will be participating in a one-year grant funding of the $35,000. The PA Smart Target grant will be funding a staffing training for the team of educator on the way to implement the computer science, their classrooms, purchase of the product and the equipment, post-training, and their it's resolved the Scranton School District accept the 2018-2019 PA Smart Target grant. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question. More good news. Ms. McTiernan, would you please share that good news?
Yes, we received a $35,000 grant. We received a $35,000 grant, which we will use for computer science and STEM. For our teachers, there will be professional development, and then there will be some funding for some resources, technology, and so on after they receive that professional development.
Good stuff.
Thanks.
I just have one question for clarity on that. I'm not sure if you could answer, but anyone who could. Any time that we get these grants, has this funding been already allocated, or is this just a grant to do supplemental training and supplemental instruction, supplemental technology to enhance the development of the students, or does this money, can we redirect some of that money to the general fund? I know each grant is different. I'm talking about this one in particular.
Right, with this one in particular, the grant was written for these specific purposes. So you have to use the grant, I have to follow the guidelines that are in that grant of how I spend the money.
Yep, just wasn't sure on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Pople? Yes. Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush? 7 affirmative.
Okay, now each of this with Mr. Casey's committee and Mr. Leslie, since Mr. Leslie's on the phone. Mr. Audi, is it okay if I read this resolution?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Members of the school board of, members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, is the recommendation of the Superintendent of the Operations Committee, the following resolution be approved. Whereas Act 44 Safe Schools established criteria in which each school building must have a safety assessment conducted by a certified safety officer. Now therefore be it resolved, the Scranton School District will appoint MG Tactical Advantage LLC to conduct safety assessments of each building. MG Tactical Advantage LLC was the lowest bid for such work at $47,500. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, was this $47,500, is this coming from our safety grant that we just received?
Yes. We had put aside $80,000. That was the original bid we had. And when we received another bid, it was much lower. So yes, the monies that were set aside in our safety grant will be used toward this, and we'll have excess of what was budgeted.
But it is money from the safety grants now.
Yes.
Have we put aside safety money from the safety grant?
Absolutely, yes.
So to dovetail off that a little bit, if, as health and safety director a few years ago, I know that a few of our schools were done, approximately 4, I believe. If those, I don't think any big improvements or changes to any of those schools have been done over the past year or two. If we were to use those prior assessments, would there be a chance that this could lower this potential bid, and would that be able to go to the general fund?
Actually, we did send in the bid, or the assessments that were done on our other buildings, and these would take into consideration the buildings that have not been done. We will still work on the assessments that were done for the, I believe there were 4 or 5 buildings already done. We will use those assessments.
And that wasn't figured in the overall, I didn't read the specs when it went out for bid. In the bid anywhere, the note, the 11 elementary, 3 intermediate, 2 high, and was that specific in there?
Mr. Gretton,
Yes.
can you address that, please?
The specification was sent out and it eliminated those.
-4? It subtracted the 4 in the spec.
Yes, this is
Thank you.
only for the schools that remain to be done under activity.
Thank you. Very good.
Roll call?
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
Members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, the Superintendent and the Operations Committee present the following resolution for your consideration. Be resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves Hunt Engineering to proceed with the Willard Water Infiltration Project, the Armstrong Indoor Air Quality Project, the West Scranton High School Science classroom renovations, and the Whittier Playground Drainage Project. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
Other questions?
I just would like to be clear on what step of this process we are authorizing, because the presentation, I mean, I certainly realize these are important projects and it is imperative to move on them. But the presentation seemed to have a lot of TBDs on it and
Yes.
a lot of information that we weren't able to be provided with at that time. So I just am wondering, how far are we going with this before we know a little bit more about the financial picture?
So what they have described to me is that they begin this work. This is a new company, as you know, that we're working with. They look at what we're asking them to do. They assess it. They do a design as to what needs to be done. And there's a charge up to that point. So you have approved that part. So now that you've approved that part, they will go forward and continue the work that needs to be done and bring you a cost of what these projects will cost. And they explained at our presentation to expect overruns. So that's one thing the board had discussed on numerous occasions since I have been here, that is not something that they appreciate coming in. But I believe they gave you a percentage. I can't recall. Do you recall?
Yeah, to alleviate the change orders that they came in with, like maybe I think it was at 10%.
Yes, and to expect that. So you're approving that they can move forward now on the projects, and then they will come to you with how much these projects will actually cost. So that's what we're doing tonight.
So we're just getting a cost out of these.
Right, they've done the initial work, and now it's time for them to go in, right.
It's the scope of work and then they can come back. This is the process.
Okay. But we are approving the scope of work piece of this, which I tallied these and I think came to about $90,000. I feel like it was 80-something.
That was the initial work that they've done.
Okay.
Now they're going to go further and bring you a much larger price tag, which is capital, will come from our capital funds.
But then when that comes back, we are still at the point of saying, yes, go ahead, or
Yes.
no? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And these have been projects that we have identified, the school
Yes.
district has identified?
Yes. And there are some projects that we still have to brief you on that I'm not fully briefed on, but prior to Hunt coming in, we had some projects in the queue that Palumbo had been working on. Mr. Mr. Brazil will talk to you about those and determine what you want to do moving forward. I remember one was the changing the entrance of Northeast Intermediate School. These were all for safety purposes. So he will come back to you with those. We have not moved forward on those.
So that whole safety piece that we talked about for a while, that has not moved forward?
That's correct.
Roll call.
Mr. Pople?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh? Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the policy committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the following administrative regulations, 109 AR1 and 109 AR3, first read, have been revised by the Scranton School District School Board Policy Committee. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves revisions to the administrative regulations 109 AR1 and 109 AR3 as a first read recommendation by the Scranton School District School Board Policy Committee, respectfully submitted.
Second.
I just wanted to forgive me if these got binding, but I don't remember these. I know this is first read. I don't remember these being discussed at the work session. I realize they're administrative regulations, but if we could just get a little idea of what has changed here.
Now, are we talking about the
109 ARs.
109s?
I mean, maybe I missed it, but I don't think that came through in our packets.
Well, the 109s are not the IT.
Right.
Right.
Right. This is selection of software resource materials, request for reevaluation of instructional resource materials.
Right, they are part of the IT. They're part of the IT policy recommendations where we want on the committee for selection of materials, the IT director to ensure that the platforms we're using and what is being requested are a match.
So
in the other policy, it was not there. It's an additional person on the committee.
So I believe we discussed that in the review of these policies.
Yes.
And this goes along with it.
Right, and what I was asking is that we do approve those policies this evening.
Right.
As opposed to bringing them through for second read.
Right.
There were definition changes and very slight changes that we felt were important to reinforce our IT policies.
Right, and we reviewed those at the work session, and I think everybody's comfortable with that. But do we then need a motion to suspend the rules to approve this finally on a first read?
Yes.
Yes.
You would.
So that's the first thing you need, is to suspend the rules, to approve the IT policies after one read.
So shall I withdraw this motion and make a motion to suspend the rules to approve the policy and then go back and do this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So
I'm going to do that.
The reasoning for suspending the rules and moving forward to push this forward faster is to get greater controls of these areas, or to help with the IT audit.
Yes, yes, and it was my understanding that a lot of the procedure that Mr. Williams, right?
Yes.
That he discussed went hand in hand with this, and this is just a way to wrap that all up together so that we're not implementing a procedure that doesn't line up with policy.
That's right. And we have already actually put a policy in place, a new help desk type procedure. It's already in place.
So I am withdrawing my motion.
Ms. Gilmartin, if I might, Mr. Audi reviewed these. We had a committee of IT people and senior staff looking at these. Kevin Williams then compared these with PSBA and other best practices, and Mr. Audi in writing had these reviewed and approved.
I mean, I feel comfortable with all of this. I just want to make sure that we're doing it properly. So I'm
Correct.
withdrawing this motion, and I am making a motion to suspend the rules to approve G1 and G2 as final revisions on first read.
Second.
Okay.
G2 was also encompassed in this help with IT.
So this is going to be for G1 and G2? Yes. Okay. Are we ready?
Ready.
Okay. Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel? Mr. Popel? 7 affirmative.
So it is still the recommendation of the superintendent of the policy committee that the following resolution be approved, whereas the following administrative regulations 109AR1 and 109AR3 first read have been revised by the Scranton School District School Board Policy Committee, and now therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves revisions to administrative regulations 109AR1 and 109AR3 as a first read recommended by the Scranton School District School Board Policy Committee.
Other question? Roll call.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel? Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the policy committee that the following resolution be approved, whereas the following policies 702, 706, 815, and 815.1 first read have been revised by the Scranton School District School Board Policy Committee with the assistance of Northeastern Educational Intermediate Unit 19. And now therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves revisions to policy numbers 702, 706, 815, 815.1 first read, recommended by Scranton School District School Board Policy Committee with the assistance of Northeastern Educational Intermediate Unit 19. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
Other question? Roll call.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel? Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
7 affirmative. G6.
It is the recommendation of the policy committee that the rules for the Board of School Directors be adopted as per the attached. Respectfully submitted.
Other question?
So on the question, I took this as an opportunity. Rule 28 says it shall be the duty of the president to appoint all committees except when the board may decide otherwise. And I was looking for an opportunity here to discuss our committee structure as it's been put out this January. Mrs. Dixon isn't here. Committees have been put out with 2 members rather than 3. I know we had somewhat of a discussion as to how that was going when we were consolidating committees. So I was just looking for somewhat of an explanation and somewhat of a direction of the board, or which way we're going with these committees as far as the 2 members with the, I guess the president as the de facto member of all committees. Does anybody have any insight into this?
I know that your policy states that the board president would be a part of every committee and that the superintendent would be a part of every committee. If you would like further discussion on this, because the board president put these out, you may want to table this until
That's where I'm going.
she's
Yes.
present, right?
I was looking to see if anybody else had any insight into this while we're on the topic.
There was no explanation of this.
No. And in the discussion of consolidating these committees, it was never my impression that we'd be moving from 3 members to 2. I never thought that was part of the conversation.
Well, I'll make a motion to do it.
Second.
So that's G6 that we're tabling?
Yes.
Tabling G6?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Popel? Yes. Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
A motion to adjourn?
No, new business. I like to. New business, in light of the recent developments with the Attorney General's investigation and our former business manager being actually charged, 4 months ago, we brought up the presentment, and you prepared and provided us with an action plan and a timeline.
Yes.
So where are we now? It was 4 months ago, so where are we at?
Well, quite frankly, at that meeting, there was much discussion about whether I should proceed with the timeline or not. So at this point, I was under the impression that the board was going to allow the Attorney General to do the work that they were doing, and when there were charges brought forward, then that they would be brought to the board and action would take place. One of the examples I can give you is the transportation piece. We had had much discussion about what we would do as far as whether the contract for our transportation was a legal contract or not a legal contract. There was much discussion as whether we should go for a declaratory judgment or, you know, we should accept or not accept the proposal brought forward by the transportation company. And actually, all of that, as far as I am understanding, was all put on hold. I have had no direction from the board, one way or the other. We had discussion about how much would a declaratory judgment cost if we went forward. Then we've changed solicitors, and we're kind of stuck in that piece. So, Mr. McAndrew, to answer your question, I have not moved forward on any investigation that the Attorney General is already investigating, and was under the impression that the board was going to allow the process to take place, and when charges were brought forward, then the board would make a decision based on that.
I don't remember that consensus. What I do remember is we're going to wait for all of our legal pieces in place. That's how I remember that. I don't know if anybody else remembers it that way. We were waiting for our solicitor, then we were waiting for labor. That's the way I remember it, not that we're just going to wait.
Yeah, that was
All right, so now we have our solicitor in place. We just got our labor council in place. I need direction from the board.
What I was going to bring up in new business kind of coincides with this. I'd like to request a defined role of our solicitor and our labor council. And I think once we get that defined role, I mean, not once we get it, I think this is the time that we can start to move forward with some of this from the presentment, some of your timeline, now that our legal services are now in place.
So maybe I'm understanding that the
I would just like to say,
RFP
I'd wait for the consensus of the legal team before we move forward. Being that it's a legal matter that's under state investigation, and now we have a legal team that we're going to be asking for opinion, I just feel like this putting the cart before the horse is never the best idea. However, if the legal team feels that we can move forward on certain aspects of it, I'd be more than willing to do so.
I think it's a good start of the conversation.
We've got to move, so either way, yeah. That's fine.
So your first request is that a definition of legal services, duties and responsibilities be brought forward to the board. And I'm going to ask Mr. Rowdy, are those legal services defined in the RFPs?
I believe that there's general definition, but there's always when you have several groups representing you, there's always going to be some some issues that go across both responsibilities. For example, the RFP for solicitors says solicitor-related duties. Well, that's pretty broad. So that might need to be sussed out a little bit. And I think that the Labor Council RFP is a little bit more defined, but I haven't really studied it. But I think we are working on reaching an understanding of where everyone who has what responsibilities.
And I think that would help the board just to know where.
And I think that makes sense. So it would help me.
I think it'll help
everyone. And I don't think that that's a contentious item. I just think it needs to be clarified.
Yeah, exactly.
So once that's clarified, then the next thing the board is, well, it's been brought forward that you would like legal advice on how to proceed based on the information we have at this point. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, did you refer to legal advice when you populated that agenda, well, that timeline? We just did it without, you understand what I'm saying? You had an action plan and a timeline.
Yeah.
So when you put that together, did you refer to our former solicitor?
No, I did not.
With regards to doing it, should you do it and how? Okay.
Right, but I certainly would refer to the new solicitor, whichever one it is to be.
Right.
I'm happy to do that. So that's the second thing I'm understanding that the board wishes, or it's being brought out. And then the third thing I'm hearing is that really we should let the process take place and let the Attorney General do his work. Those are the three things I heard. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so...
I mean, I feel like that third piece, we obviously don't want to impede any investigation, but if our legal team feels as though there are steps we can take, I certainly think they should be brought forward.
I'm glad you said that, because I want to reiterate that I think if there's steps that we can take as a board that's not going to impede, specifically not going to impede the work of the Attorney General, then I think by all means we should move forward on that.
I would say the same thing as long
However,
as.
if we're stepping on the investigation as it proceeds forward in any way, shape, or form, I won't be in favor.
I think I concur, and I think we should proceed with caution, and I think we should accept the guidance and advice of our solicitor on this matter. I don't think we should just go.
I agree, and my one and first piece of advice is obviously the appointment of a chief recovery officer is imminent, and I think that should take place and have that chief recovery officer assigned and appointed so we can have a global discussion amongst the board, the superintendent, chief recovery officer, PFM, to see if, in fact, our actions will comport and go along with the actions that they foresee us needing to take. But I absolutely agree, and I would be happy to, and will do whatever I can to get us to a resolution that we think we could work with, and all the parties agree would not be impeding in any way the investigation that's currently ongoing.
And if I may dovetail on new business, I would like to either on Monday, March 18th or Monday, April 22nd, speaking in the global terms, have a committee meeting of the intergovernmental, well now community relations as it stands, between the two state representatives, the state senator, PFM, PDE, and anyone else, especially the Federation of Teachers, the Act 93 employees, and the maintenance union to come together to talk about more of this, what we discussed in C1, the funding that we desperately need, and we desperately need this year. I'd like to start this communication well before the final budgetary process at the state level, which occurs in June, so we can all be more on the same page about exactly what our ask could be this year and how to more properly fund this district prior to us agreeing to any kind of recovery plan. I don't feel like the recovery plan and the recovery officer should work independent of the funding that we're supposed to get from the state. And I'd like to see us start off on the same page, working together, either at the Monday, whatever the best date would work. I think I'll be flexible. I hope Director Gumart will be flexible, and anyone else on the board. I mentioned Director Gumart specifically because she's also on community relations with me, so we can start this conversation fairly quickly to try to work on the budget for the 2020-2021 year.
And was this something Mrs. Gilmartin talked about, having a work session discussion here? Could
Dr.
this be a
Kieran
committee
and I
meeting?
had discussed something like this taking place at the work session in March, but certainly if another date is
Well,
more
what I'd like
convenient.
to, what I'd specifically like, I'd
I
like
was
to
going for maybe you do the committee meeting and then into the work session, maybe the same day.
I think that's a great idea. Even the same day or whatever day would work for a lot of, I know the state members, and they have a much busier schedule. Whatever would work for them, I would be willing to. I just don't want to get into May or June. I want to see if there's any days in those.
March
And
or April.
the reason I say Monday, March 18th and Monday, April 22nd is because that's the proposed dates for our committee meetings, should we have it. Excuse me, should we have it. So if we can reach out to, I would be able to help out on a few of those reach outs, but I'd like to make sure that we're in coordination with PD, PFM, and our recovery officer to see if this is a proper way to start this discussion as early as possible.
Yes.
Thank you. I was waiting for a sec, I'm sorry.
We have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Good night, Bob.
The dog.